The comms array exploded in a shower of sparks, sending shrapnel careening across the bridge. Commander Ariana Voss ducked behind her console, heart racing. "Report," she barked. "They jammed our communications, ma'am," her XO replied, voice strained. "All systems are under attack. Shields, weapons, engines. We're blind and dead in the water." Ariana's jaw tightened. The Carrid fleet had cornered her cruiser in this remote system, cutting them off from reinforcements. This was no mere skirmish. The aliens were determined to cripple the HOA Resolute by any means necessary. "Damage control teams now," she ordered. "Get those systems back online. We need to buy time until help arrives." As the crew scrambled to their stations, Ariana peered out the viewport. The sleek Carrid warships surrounded them, cannons charging. This was no mere display of force. The aliens intended to make an example of the Resolute, to crush humanity's defiance. Not on her watch. A blast rocked the bridge, and Ariana was flung to the deck. Shields at 30% and failing. Her XO shouted, "We can't take another hit like that." Ariana hauled herself up, eyes narrowing. "Helm, evasive maneuvers. Target their weapons arrays, maximum firepower. We need to punch a hole in their formation." The Resolute lurched and dove, its pulse cannons lashing out. Explosions blossomed across the alien ships, but their sheer numbers overwhelmed the human vessel. "Shields down. Hull breach on Deck 7, the XO reported. "We're losing life support." Ariana gritted her teeth. This was it, then. The Resolute would become a grave for her and her crew. She refused to go down without a fight. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed," she announced, voice ringing with resolve. "Target their command ship. We'll take them with us." Her XO stared at her, aghast. "Ma'am, you can't be serious." "That's an order, Commander," Ariana snapped. "We're not going to let these bastards win." She turned to the helmsman. "Do it." The Resolute surged forward, its battered hull gleaming in the light of the nearby stars. The Carrid ships scrambled to intercept, but the human cruiser plowed through their formation, its bow crashing into the command vessel's flank. Ariana braced herself as the impact shuddered through the Resolute. Alarms blared, and she could feel the ship tearing itself apart around her. But she held on, unwavering, as the Carrid command ship disintegrated in a blinding explosion. As the Resolute's systems flickered and died, Ariana gripped the edge of her console, her knuckles turning white. The bridge was in chaos, acrid smoke billowing from damaged consoles. She could hear the wails of the wounded echoing through the corridors. "Damn it, all systems are down," her XO reported, coughing. "We've lost engines, life support, everything. We're dead in the space." Ariana surveyed the devastation around her, jaw set. "Order all hands to abandon ship," she said, her voice low and tense. "Get the crew to the escape pods now." The XO hesitated. "But what about you, ma'am?" Ariana met his gaze, her eyes steely. "I'm staying. Someone has to try and keep this ship from drifting into the Carrid formation." "You can't be serious," the XO protested. "That's suicide." "That's an order, Commander," Ariana said, her tone brooking no argument. "Get the crew to safety." "That's an _order _." The XO opened his mouth, then closed it, his expression torn. Finally, he nodded sharply and turned to relay the evacuation order. Ariana watched as the bridge crew filed out, their faces etched with fear and resignation. As the last of them disappeared, she let out a long, shaky breath. She was alone now, surrounded by the dying husk of the Resolute. Gripping the edge of the console, she steadied herself, her mind racing. The Carrid ships were closing in, their cannons primed. She had to find a way to stop them, to give the escape pods a chance to get clear. Her gaze fell on the main weapons console, its display flickering feebly. An idea began to form in her mind, one born of desperation and defiance. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance she had. Ariana reached for the controls, her fingers flying across the interface. "All right, you alien bastards," she muttered, her voice hardening with determination. "Let's see how you like a taste of human ingenuity." The carriage ships were closing in, their sleek hulls gleaming in the dim light of the damaged bridge. Ariana could feel the deck shudder beneath her feet as the enemy ships began their final assault. "All right, you bastards," she muttered, her fingers flying across the weapons console. "Let's see how you like this." With a groan of protesting systems, the Resolute's main cannons powered up, their targeting arrays locking onto the nearest carried vessel. Ariana's jaw was set in a grim line as she unleashed a barrage of fire, the pulse cannons hammering the alien ship with savage intensity. The carried vessel shuddered under the onslaught, its shields flickering and failing. Ariana's lips curled in a feral grin as she saw the ship begin to list, thick plumes of smoke and debris venting from its wounded hull. "That's right, you sons of bitches," she growled, adjusting the targeting. "Taste some good old-fashioned human firepower." But even as the carriage ship crumpled under the Resolute's guns, Ariana knew it was a hollow victory. The rest of the alien fleet was closing in, their own weapons primed and ready. The Resolute was a dying ship, and she was its only defender. "Come on, you bastards," she muttered, her fingers dancing across the console. "Just a little longer." The carriage ships opened fire, their weapons lancing out in brilliant bursts of energy. Ariana braced herself as the bridge shook under the barrage, sparks erupting from damaged systems. The Resolute's hull was buckling, its armor plating peeling away like so much paper. But Ariana refused to be cowed. She unleashed another volley, the Resolute's guns roaring in defiance. More carriage ships faltered and fell, their hulls crumpling under the human vessel's onslaught. "That's it, you alien freaks," Ariana hissed, her eyes narrowing. "Keep coming. I've got a little surprise waiting for you." As the carriage ships drew ever closer, Ariana's fingers danced across the weapons console, her mind racing. She had to time this just right, or it would all be for nothing. The carriage ships were relentless, their cannons pounding the Resolute's battered hull. Ariana gritted her teeth, her fingers flying across the weapons console as she fought to keep the human cruiser's systems operational. "Come on, you bastards," she muttered, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "Just a little closer." The carriage ships pressed their assault, their sleek hulls closing in around the Resolute. Ariana could feel the deck shudder beneath her feet as the alien weapons tore through the cruiser's defenses. "Now," she shouted, slamming her hand down on the console. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the Resolute's bow, a massive surge of energy lancing out towards the carried formation. The alien ships scrambled to evade, but the blast caught them full on, engulfing them in a blinding, searing heat. Ariana watched, her expression grim, as the carried vessels were consumed by the blast, their hulls twisting and melting under the onslaught. The massive discharge of energy ripped through their shields and armor, leaving nothing but molten debris in its wake. As the last of the carriage ships disintegrated, Ariana sagged against the console, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The Resolute's systems were in shambles, the bridge barely holding together around her. "What the hell did you do?" a voice croaked behind her. Ariana turned to see her XO, his uniform singed and his face streaked with soot, staring at her in a mixture of awe and horror. "I rigged the Resolute's warp core to overload," she said, her voice hoarse. "Gave them a little taste of human ingenuity." The XO's eyes widened. "But that would mean—" Ariana nodded, her expression solemn. "The Resolute is done for. I couldn't let those carried bastards have her, not after what they did." She looked out the viewport, where the twisted, molten remains of the alien ships drifted in the void. "We'll take them with us." The XO was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the devastation outside. Then he stepped forward and placed a hand on Ariana's shoulder. You did good, Commander, he said, his voice thick with emotion. The crew, they'll never forget this. Ariana managed a small, weary smile. That's all that matters, XO. That's all that matters. Ariana stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her eyes fixed on the viewport as the escape pods drifted away, their occupants safe from the impending destruction. She could feel the deck shudder beneath her feet, the ship's systems groaning and straining against the overloading warp core. 30 seconds to core breach, the XO reported, his voice strained. We need to get to the escape pods, now. Ariana turned to him, her expression resolute. You go, XO. I'm staying. The XO's eyes widened in protest. What? No, Commander, you can't. That's an order, Commander. Ariana cut him off, her tone brooking no argument. Get to the pods and make sure the crew makes it to safety. But that's an order. Ariana repeated, her voice steely. I'm not leaving my ship. The XO stared at her, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. Finally, he gave a terse nod and turned to leave. As he reached the bridge hatch, he paused and looked back at Ariana. You know, the crew always said you were the best damn captain they ever served under, he said, his voice thick with emotion. They were right. Ariana managed a small, weary smile. Tell them I'll see them on the other side. The XO nodded, his eyes shining with unshed tears, and then he was gone, the hatch sliding shut behind him. Ariana turned back to the viewport, watching as the escape pods drifted away, their occupants safe from the impending destruction. She could feel the ship shuddering around her, the warp core's overload building to a crescendo. 15 seconds to core breach, the computer announced, its voice calm and implacable. Ariana closed her eyes, a sense of peace washing over her. She had done all she could to protect her crew, to ensure their survival. Now, it was time to face the end with the same unwavering courage that had defined her career. 10 seconds, the computer intoned. Ariana's lips curled in a small, resolute smile. Give 'em hell, Resolute, she whispered. The bridge erupted in a blinding flash of light as the warp core breached, consuming the Resolute in a titanic explosion that tore through the carrot formation like a celestial fist. Ariana Voss, her duty fulfilled, was gone in an instant, her sacrifice etched forever in the annals of human history. In the aftermath of the Resolute's devastating sacrifice, the surviving escape pods drifted silently through the debris-strewn void. The crew, their faces etched with grief and shock, huddled together, their thoughts consumed by the memory of their captain's final act. The XO, his uniform torn and his eyes red-rimmed, stood at the hatch of the lee pod, his gaze fixed on the expanding cloud of plasma and twisted metal that had once been the HOA Resolute. She did it, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. The crazy bastard actually did it. A crewman, his face streaked with soot and tears, stepped forward, placing a hand on the XO's shoulder. She saved us, sir. She saved all of us. The XO nodded, his jaw tightening. That she did, soldier. That she did. He turned to face the rest of the crew, his expression solemn. Captain Ariana Voss gave her life to ensure our survival. We owe it to her to make it home, to tell the rest of the UN what she did here today. A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembled crew, their eyes hardening with determination. They had witnessed the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate defiance of the human spirit, and they would carry that legacy back to the core worlds, a testament to the indomitable will of their species. As the escape pods drifted aimlessly, the crew began to take stock of their situation. Supplies were limited, and their communication systems were in disarray, the carriage jamming still hampering their ability to call for rescue. The XO turned to the pod's navigator, his expression grim. Can you plot a course to the nearest UN outpost? The navigator, her fingers flying across the console, nodded. Yes, sir. It'll take us a few days to get there, but we should have enough supplies to make it. The XO let out a long, shaky breath. Then that's where we're headed. Set a course and get us moving. The sooner we get back, the sooner the rest of the UEN will know what happened here. As the pods began to slowly drift towards their destination, the crew huddled together, their thoughts consumed by the memory of their fallen captain. Ariana Voss had shown them the true measure of the human spirit, and they would carry that lesson with them for the rest of their lives. The UEN outpost on Epsilon Prime was a bustling hub of activity, its docking bays and supply depots a hive of activity as ships came and went. But when the tattered escape pods of the UEN resolute limped into the system, the entire station seemed to hold its breath. The XO, his uniform still stained with the grime of battle, stepped out of the lead pod, his expression solemn. The rest of the crew followed, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion, but also a fierce determination. As they were ushered into the outpost medical facilities, the XO was immediately approached by a senior officer, his eyes wide with concern. "Commander, what happened?" the officer demanded. "Where's the Resolute?" The XO's jaw tightened, and for a moment he found it difficult to speak. "The Resolute," he began, his voice hoarse. "She's gone. Captain Voss. She sacrificed the ship to destroy the Carib fleet that ambushed us." The officer's eyes widened in shock. "Destroyed the fleet? How?" "She rigged the warp core to overload," the XO interrupted, his expression hardening. "Took the entire Carib formation with her." A hush fell over the gathered officers and personnel, the weight of the XO's words sinking in. Ariana Voss had not only held off the alien onslaught, but had dealt a devastating blow to the Carib invaders. The captain. She stayed behind, didn't she? One of the junior officers asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The XO nodded, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Yes, she gave the order to evacuate and stayed on the bridge to ensure the rest of us made it to safety." A murmur of awe and respect rippled through the crowd, and the XO knew that Ariana's name would be etched into the annals of human history. She had shown the galaxy the true metal of the human spirit, a defiance and bravery that would not be broken. As the crew was ushered into the outpost's medical bay, the XO turned to the senior officer, his expression grim. "We need to get a message to UEN High Command," he said, his voice firm. "They need to know what happened here, and they need to know _now_." The officer nodded, his face set with determination. "Consider it done, Commander. The Carib will pay for what they've done. I can promise you that." The XO allowed himself a small, weary smile. "I know they will. And when they do, they'll know the name Ariana Voss, the captain who showed them the true strength of humanity." News of the Resolute's last stand and Ariana Voss' heroic sacrifice spread like wildfire through the UEN, igniting a surge of patriotism and determination that rippled across the human colonies. Within days, the UEN High Command had mobilized a massive fleet, its vessels bristling with weapons and brimming with the righteous fury of a species wronged. They would not rest until the Carib were brought to their knees, until the memory of Ariana Voss and her crew was avenged. The Carib, sensing the impending onslaught, made a desperate attempt to fortify their position, but they were no match for the relentless onslaught of the UEN Armada. Battle after battle raged across the stars, each one a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. And at the heart of it all was the name of Ariana Voss, a rallying cry that inspired the UAN forces to feats of incredible valor and heroism. They fought with a fury born of grief and anger, determined to ensure that the sacrifice of the Resolute's crew would not be in vain. In the end, the Carib were driven back, their fleets shattered and their colonies reduced to rubble. The UEN had emerged victorious, but the cost had been high. Countless lives had been lost, and the scars of the conflict would linger for generations. But through it all, the legacy of Ariana Voss remained, a beacon of hope and defiance that would inspire generations of human explorers and warriors. She had shown the galaxy that the human spirit could not be broken, that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity would fight to the bitter end. And as the UEN rebuilt and prepared for a new era of interstellar cooperation and exploration, the name of Ariana Voss would be spoken with reverence and awe, a testament to the power of the human will and the unbreakable spirit of the human race.